The clown thing did not start as cruelty. 2 red noses, 1 birthday cake, and of course I called it exposure therapy. My husband had trusted me with one fear, and I treated it like party material. By the end of his birthday, everyone had laughed except the only person who mattered. By morning, the joke had already learned how to leave without making noise. My name is Ingrid Voss. I was 33, and I ran public programs at a children's museum. I believed I could turn fear into something useful, bright, and small enough for families to carry home in paper bags. 2 red noses, 1 prop shelf, and of course I called it courage when I made people touch what scared them. The storage room smelled like old rubber, dust, and face paint that had dried years ago. Oversized shoes sat under a table beside puppet bins and foam planets from a space exhibit. I was sorting materials for our Fear and Imagination program, the one where children crawled through soft tunnels and named the monster before the monster lost power. That was my work. I made hard things playful. I made parents clap after their children touched fake spiders. I made donors say that learning could be brave. Darius came in through the staff door with a paper bag from the museum cafe. My husband always brought food when I forgot dinner. He also checked the exit sign before he looked at me because that was Darius. A loose wire, a blocked door, a fire extinguisher turned wrong on its hook. He saw danger before he saw the room. Once I loved that. Every winter before the city carnival opened, we used to walk through the empty grounds together. The rides were still, the booths covered, the performers gone. I liked the quiet colours before the crowds came. Darius liked that there were no costumes moving suddenly from behind stalls. He would still hold my hand near the funhouse, and I called that brave because nobody else had to see it. That afternoon, a red foam nose rolled from the table and stopped near his shoe. Darius did not jump. He only stepped back. 1 step. Careful, controlled. The kind of movement another person might miss. I saw it, and something in me tightened. He asked if the exhibit was about fear again. I told him children liked fear when adults did not make it sacred. He placed the food bag on the table and asked softly if something had changed between us since the donor event. I knew which event he meant. The clown performer had walked in early, and Darius had gone outside. A board member had asked if my husband was all right. I called it concern when I hated how small he looked. I told him nothing had changed. Then I put the red nose back on the shelf like it had done something rude. The museum cafe closed at 6, but the smell of burned coffee stayed in the hallway until morning. I sat there the next day with Mei Chen from Education, spreading program cards across a small table. Each card had a simple child-friendly phrase on it. Name the fear, draw the fear, make the fear silly. May read one card twice and asked if I thought that worked for adults too. I told her adults were harder because they called fear boundaries and expected everyone to build furniture around it. I said it lightly. Of course I did. Lightness makes a blade look like a party favor. May did not laugh right away. She only stacked the cards and said some fears had names for a reason. That should have slowed me down. Instead, it annoyed me. 1 table, 2 paper cups, no audience worth impressing, and still I wanted the room to agree with me. Linnea arrived after work wearing a yellow coat and carrying the kind of energy that made ordinary problems look underdressed. She had been my closest friend since university, back when we believed bad decisions proved we were alive. Her own life had become careful by then. A quiet apartment, a quiet job in museum grants, a boyfriend who meal prepped salmon on Sundays. She liked my marriage best when it gave her something sharp to watch. She asked if the safety husband had brought dinner again. I told her not to call him that. My mouth smiled before the warning did any work. At her apartment later, the kitchen smelled like lime candles and overcooked pasta. Linnea poured wine into glasses that did not match and asked what I was doing for Darius's birthday. I said he wanted something small, maybe dinner, maybe bowling, nothing dramatic. She said small was how careful people trained everyone else to disappear. I called it honesty when I told her I was tired of building rooms around the clown thing. Linnea leaned across the counter. She said maybe he did not need another gentle birthday. Maybe he needed one bright, ridiculous shock to show him the fear had no teeth. She said I worked with fear for a living, so maybe I was the only person brave enough to help him. Help him. That was the word that opened the door. At first, the idea was only a joke. One silly video, one red nose on the cake. Something harmless. Then Linnea said 3 performers entering together would be unforgettable. She laughed while she said it, but her eyes stayed on my face, hungry for the version of me that still scared rooms awake. I looked up Rowan Vale that night. His company was called Fearless Fun Entertainment, which should have warned me. The website showed smiling performers at corporate parties, school events, adult birthdays, and surprise entrances. Rowan answered my message in 9 minutes. He said fear made the best reactions when handled with confidence. He said birthdays needed a turn people would talk about. I called it exposure therapy in my head because therapy sounded cleaner than prank. The booking form asked for emotional limits. I wrote that the guest of honor had a strong reaction to clowns, but that the tone should stay playful. I did not write the birthday story from when Darius was 8. I did not write about the party where an older cousin locked him in a garage with a hired clown who kept banging on the door because everyone thought his crying was funny. I did not write that he had told me that story in bed one rainy night, after 2 years of marriage, when he trusted the dark more than any room full of people. I paid the deposit from the joint card by mistake. Darius saw the notification before I could move the charge. We were in the apartment hallway, shoes by the door, keys in the blue ceramic bowl, rain tapping against the balcony glass. He asked why Fearless Fun Entertainment had charged us $200. Specific. Factual. That was how he came toward hurt. Not with heat. With one object placed on the table. I told him it was for the museum program. The lie was small enough to fit in my mouth without changing my face. He looked at me longer than usual. Then he asked about the donor event. He said I had sounded angry afterward when he stepped outside. He said he had not meant to embarrass me. He asked what had happened there. What he meant was that he knew my face had changed when the board member asked about him. What I heard was that he wanted me to comfort him for making me look like the woman married to a frightened man. I told him he could not keep making every public room responsible for his private discomfort. He said he was not asking a room for anything. He was asking his wife to stop looking disappointed when his body remembered something before he could. That sentence was almost good. From another man, maybe it would have landed. From Darius, it sounded like another safety notice. Later, Nia texted me. She asked why Rowan's company had followed me online. Darius's sister did not waste words. She had been there during the childhood birthday story, not inside the garage, but close enough to remember how adults laughed afterward and how Darius stopped liking birthdays with performers. I read her message on Linnea's sofa while Linnea scrolled through costume photos Rowan had sent. I called it privacy when I did not answer. By Friday, the party was arranged. Private bowling lounge, rooftop room, 12 guests, 1 cake, 3 performers waiting downstairs for the birthday song. May heard me tell Linnea that Darius was finally going to learn the clown thing was not a religion. May put her mug down and asked if he knew. I told her surprises worked better when people did not ruin them with advance fear. May said nothing after that. The wider circle had started to hear something. I chose to hear anticipation. The private bowling lounge looked better than I expected. Blue lane lights glowed through the glass floor panels, and the rooftop party room above smelled like fried dough, citrus cleaner, and the buttercream cake I had ordered from the bakery Darius liked. Gold balloons leaned against the wall. A black banner hung above the long table with silver letters spelling "Face Your Fears, Birthday King." I called it playful. I needed it to be playful. 2 bowling shoes under a chair, 1 cake knife beside the candles. No crime if everyone laughed the right way. Darius arrived in the green shirt I liked, the one that made his shoulders look softer and broader at the same time. He kissed my cheek and thanked me for keeping it small. That was what he said. Small. He looked around at the 12 people, the food, the music, the lanes below, and smiled like he trusted the room because I had built it. That smile made something twist under my ribs. Naya came in after him with Thomas. She saw the banner before she hugged me. Her eyes moved from the words to my face, then to the door where the performers would enter later. She asked what the banner meant. I told her it was an inside joke. She did not smile. Linnea stood near the bar and lifted her glass at me. Ezra had his phone out already, recording little clips for his group recap. May arrived late from work and stayed near the gift table, still wearing her museum badge on her coat. Rowan checked in by text from downstairs and said his team was ready. I looked at Darius while everyone gathered for the birthday song. He was laughing at something Thomas said. His hand rested on the back of a chair. He looked calm, normal. Like all the years of avoiding certain rooms and certain costumes were things he had made important, only because nobody had loved him loudly enough to push back. That was the story I needed. The lights dimmed. The cake came out. People sang. Darius looked embarrassed in the ordinary birthday way, mouth closed, eyes lowered, one hand raised as if to tell everyone that was enough attention. Then the door opened. The first clown stepped in with a bouquet of twisted balloons. Red wig, white face, blue painted smile. The second came behind him with an oversized gift box. The third wore a striped jacket and carried a horn he did not blow because I had told Rowan no sudden loud sounds. I had thought that made me kind. The room laughed before it understood itself. Darius stopped moving. He did not scream. He did not run. His hand left the chair and went flat against his thigh. His face became still in a way that made his eyes look too awake. One step back, then another. The birthday song collapsed into awkward humming and scattered laughter. Someone said his face was priceless. Linnea laughed first, sharp and bright. Ezra kept filming. Rowan's performers spread out as planned, blocking the easy path to the door because immersive meant surrounding the guest. I heard myself say that he was finally getting over the clown thing. I said it like a host saving a room. I told everyone I had been married to a grown man afraid of face paint and that tonight we were making progress. The words got laughs. Thin ones. Enough to feed me for 3 more seconds. Darius looked at me then. Not at the painted faces. Not at the balloons. At me. That was when the room changed. Naya moved first. She told Rowan's lead performer to stop. Her voice stayed low, but the word stop cut through the music. Rowan, standing near the doorway now, gave me a quick glance. I made a small circle with my finger, telling him to continue. He did. Of course he did. I had paid for 10 minutes. The lead clown bent slightly and offered Darius a balloon crown. Darius did not take it. He walked around the performer, slow and careful, as if any sudden movement would give the room more to use. He went into the service stairwell. The door closed behind him with a soft metal click. I followed because now he was embarrassing me. The stairwell smelled like wet concrete and old mop water. Darius stood on the landing with one hand on the railing. His breathing was quiet but uneven. He asked why I used the one thing he had trusted me with. He said he had told me that story because I was his wife. No raised voice, no accusation for the audience, just the quiet debrief he always wanted after something had already happened. I heard control. I heard him making me the villain of a joke that had gone wrong because he could not handle being seen. I told him he could not keep letting childhood decide adult rooms. I told him I was trying to help. I said fear got smaller when people stopped worshipping it. He asked if help usually needed a room full of people and a camera. That landed badly because it was too clean. I told him Ezra filmed everything and that he should stop making this special. Darius looked at the stairwell door, then back at me. He said I had not made the fear smaller. I had made it public. For 1 second, there was nowhere for my anger to stand. Then the party room door opened, and the lead clown stepped halfway into the stairwell with the red foam nose pinned to his striped jacket. He asked if the birthday king was ready for cake. His voice was gentle, professional, almost kind. Darius looked at the red nose. Nia appeared behind the performer, her mouth tight. May stood farther back near the gift table, coat already buttoned. I saw Nia's face and almost saw myself through it. Not funny, not brave, not the wife who pushed fear into sunlight. A woman who had taken a locked room from her husband's childhood and sold tickets to it. The thought opened like a door. I closed it. I told myself Nia had always protected him too much. I told myself Darius had trained his sister to treat him like glass. I stepped past the clown and asked everyone to cut the cake before it melted under the lights. Linnea did not laugh after that. She looked down into her drink and touched the stem of the glass with one finger. Darius came back only to get his coat. He did not blow out the candles. He did not take the gifts. He walked through the room while people pretended to check plates and phones. The song never restarted. The apartment was clean when I woke up. That was the first insult of the morning. No streamers on the couch, no gift bags near the door, no cake box on the counter. Darius had removed every sign of the party before I opened my eyes, like the night had been a spill he could wipe away if he got up early enough. The hallway smelled like lemon cleaner. His shoes were gone from the mat. The blue ceramic bowl held only my keys. 2 folded corners of a birthday banner, 1 plastic bag on the dining table, no husband making coffee. Inside the sealed bag was the red foam nose. I stood over it in my robe, hair still damp from sleep, and for a few seconds the apartment became too quiet to argue with. The nose looked smaller in the bag than it had looked on the performer. Cheap, soft, stupid. Not a monster, not proof of courage, just a little red object sealed away because Darius had decided it mattered. The door opened a little inside me. I almost saw the simple shape of it. He was not humiliated because people knew he was afraid. He had lived with that. He was not broken because 3 performers had entered a room. He had survived worse. The damage was that I had been the person who invited them. I had known where the old fear lived, and I had opened the door from the outside with a smile. My hand moved toward the bag. Then I stopped. I called it evidence. I told myself he had sealed it because he wanted to build a case inside the marriage, because quiet men loved proof when feelings got messy. I told myself he had cleaned the apartment not because he was hurt, but because he wanted the room to accuse me before he did. That made it easier to breathe. Darius came back at 10 with 1 overnight bag and his work coat folded over his arm. He looked tired in the plain way people look tired after not sleeping, not dramatic enough for me to use. Nia waited in the hallway outside the open door. She did not come in. I asked if we were doing this with witnesses now. He said Nia had driven him because he did not want to take the car while upset. Practical, of course. Careful even in collapse. He stood near the dining table and looked at the sealed bag. Then he looked at me. He said the party was not one bad joke. He said it was the donor event, the museum cafe, Linnea's safety husband comments, the way I turned every careful part of him into material. He said last night was only the first time I hired professionals. Naming the pattern. Not one incident. Accumulation. Darius loved accumulation because it let him sound calm while placing stones around a door. I told him I was sorry he felt exposed. I said the words slowly, cleanly, like a good adult. Then I added that he had to admit people had tiptoed around the clown thing for too long. His mouth changed by 1 inch. He said he never asked people to tiptoe. He said he asked me not to invite the worst birthday of his childhood to this one. That was a real sentence. It should have stayed in the room by itself. Instead, I called it unfair. I told him he was making me responsible for a child's memory I had not created. I said I had tried to help him live bigger. He asked if bigger meant letting people laugh while he tried to find a door. Nia moved in the hallway. I saw her shadow through the opening. I told him his sister had always treated him like something breakable. He did not defend her. That was worse. He only zipped the bag he had brought and walked toward the bedroom. I followed because silence makes me louder. I told him adults had to grow. I said I was not going to spend my life checking every party, every costume, every performer, every corner of every room because he might remember something. He opened the closet and took 3 shirts. He folded them with steady hands. That steadiness looked like punishment. Then he sat on the edge of the bed. Not for effect. Not to win. His shoulders lowered and his hands hung between his knees. He looked at the floor and said he had thought I was the one person who would never use that story to make him smaller. There was no strategy in it, just sadness. I misread it because I needed to. I told myself he was performing pain because Nia stood outside. I told myself the lowered shoulders were part of the quiet wounded thing that made everyone gather around him and leave me standing there with the knife they decided I had used. My phone buzzed on the dresser. Nia had sent me a message from the hallway. She wrote that I knew exactly what that story meant. I did not answer. Darius stood and picked up the sealed bag with the red nose. That was the silent marker. He did not wave it. He did not explain it. He placed it inside his overnight bag between folded shirts like it belonged with things he needed. I told myself he was being theatrical. The reader would have known better. I did not let myself. By afternoon, Ezra had removed the party clip from the group chat. He sent one message saying he did not think it should be passed around. May stopped answering my work jokes in the staff channel. Linnea replied to my texts with short little lines, all delay and no heat. I called it people being uncomfortable with honesty. Darius left before dinner. Nia did not look at me when he stepped into the hallway. The apartment door closed softly behind them. Nothing slammed. That was the worst part. The museum staff office smelled like printer toner and the apples someone always left in the break room until they went soft. I arrived Monday wearing a navy dress and the face I used for board meetings. Clean, bright, unbothered. If a room saw you steady, it often forgot to ask what you had done. 2 unread messages from Darius, 1 staff meeting, no room for the story to get ahead of me. May was at the copy machine. I told her Darius had left because of a harmless birthday prank that got overblown by people who preferred men fragile. I said it with a small laugh because small laughs tell listeners where to stand. May did not stand there. She took her copies from the tray and said adults did not usually leave over harmless things. Her voice was not cruel. That made it harder to fight. She did not offer comfort either. She walked back to her desk and put on her headset. That was the first time my version did not land, so I made it bigger. At lunch, I posted the cropped photo. Not the part where Darius stepped back. Not the part where Nia moved toward him. Just the cake, the banner, one performer blurred at the edge, and me smiling with a glass in my hand. The caption said some people needed to stop letting fear run their lives. I read it twice. Then I posted it anyway. That was not impulse. That was me choosing the room before he could. That was me telling the story while the lights still knew my face. I called it taking control. Darius came to the apartment that evening to collect more clothes. He used his key, then paused when he saw me in the entryway. The blue ceramic bowl sat between us on the console. His key was still on the ring. For a second, I thought he would place it there and leave it. He did not. He asked if I had posted the photo. Specific. Factual. Always one clean object. I said yes. I said I was tired of being made into a monster because I tried to live with a man instead of a locked room. He looked at the console, at the empty space where his daily things used to be, then back at me. He said I was still calling the fear a room instead of a wound. I hated how calm he sounded. I hated that calm had started to feel less like weakness and more like distance. He went to the bedroom. I followed him again. He took socks from the drawer, a charger from the nightstand, and the brown sweater I used to steal on cold mornings. Ordinary thefts of shared life. That was what leaving looked like when it had already been decided inside a person. I told him he had no right to make me guess forever. Then I said the one thing he could not deny. I told him he never told people what he felt until I had already embarrassed myself trying to guess it. He stopped folding. There it was. Clean. True. Not enough. Darius said I was right. He said he had stayed quiet too long. He said he had spent years hoping I would understand what his quiet meant, because saying it out loud made him feel like a child, asking not to be laughed at again. No defense, no correction. He gave me the truth, and somehow kept it from saving me. Then he said, quiet was not permission. That sentence took the air out of the bedroom. He told me there was still one way to speak before things became only practical. He said if I took the post down, told the truth to the people at the party, and stopped calling his fear weakness, we could speak with someone neutral. He said it once. Final and clean. No begging. That was his offer. I heard a contract. I heard conditions. I heard him making me kneel in front of the same people who had watched him leave. I said I would not apologize for trying to have a life that did not shrink around his childhood. I said I had been patient. I said I had spent years letting the clown thing decide where we went, what we watched, which events we left early, which jokes died before they reached the table. He placed the sweater in the bag. I kept going because stopping would have left the real sentence visible. I said he liked being wounded because wounded people got protected without having to change. I said everyone had been trained to treat him like glass. I said I was done carrying a grown man through rooms. Darius zipped the bag. He said he would handle things properly now. No legal words, no threat. Just properly. I laughed because properly was exactly the sound of our whole marriage breaking into labelled boxes. I told him that word was why I had felt trapped. He looked at me then, and his face was clearer than I had seen it in months. He said, maybe trapped was what I called any place where someone trusted me not to perform. That was the last thing he said in the apartment that night. After he left, I messaged Linnea 3 times. I sent the post, then a voice note, then a single question asking if people had lost their minds. 12 hours later, she reacted with a grey thumbs up. One icon. No words. An absence dressed as manners. Rowan emailed that afternoon. He asked if I still wanted the footage package edited for his company's promotional reel, since the reaction had strong viral potential. He added that his performers had followed my written brief and that any negative guest response came from private context not disclosed in the booking terms. Private context. That was when I understood Rowan was not worried about Darius. He was worried about usage rights. The apartment became logistical after that. Darius texted only about bills, shared items, mail, the car schedule, the spare key. No anger, no questions, no late-night accusation I could push against. I grew louder in the spaces he left blank. I told May too much at work. I posted less and checked more. I opened Linnea's chat and watched the grey thumbs up sit there like a locked door. Nia blocked me before Friday. Ezra stopped answering. Thomas sent one message saying he would not repeat my version because he had seen enough. I called it betrayal. By then, Darius's silence had become heavier than any speech I could make. The mediation centre was on the 3rd floor of a beige office building above a dental clinic. The hallway smelled like copier paper and mint mouthwash. I arrived 9 days after the party expecting a neutral conversation about Darius calming down. Darius was already in the small conference room with Nia beside him. She wore a grey coat and kept both hands around a paper cup. She did not greet me. The mediator checked our names, closed the door, and asked us to sit. 2 chairs between us, 1 glass pitcher on the table, no birthday decorations left to blame. A man entered after the mediator confirmed my full name. He carried a flat envelope and asked me to accept service. I signed on the small screen with my finger. Then I placed the envelope on the table and pressed both palms against the cover page before opening it. The document was titled Petition for Dissolution of Marriage with Request for Temporary Orders. Behind it was a motion for temporary exclusive use of the marital apartment and preservation of digital evidence. The temporary orders hearing was set for July 18th at County Family Court. Nia looked down at her cup. Darius did not look at me. The evidence list was not magic. It was mine. Group chat screenshots. Rowan's booking agreement. Ezra's original clip, my cropped post, Nia's message saying I knew exactly what that story meant. The red foam nose and the folded banner were named as preserved items. I told the mediator this was punishment because I had tried to help my husband grow. The mediator looked at the page, then at me, and asked why growth needed 3 performers, a birthday audience, and a public post. There was nothing sharp in her voice. That made it impossible to call cruel. During the break, Rowan's email came through. He wrote that Fearless Fun Entertainment had acted under my written instructions and attached the signed booking form. Agenda, invoice, emotional limits, my name. He left before I did. He did it from a laptop. I moved into a short-term rental above a closed flower shop, while Darius kept temporary use of the apartment until the hearing. Our joint account was limited to documented household expenses, and every charge began to look like a question I had to answer. Nia blocked me, Ezra stopped replying, May became polite at work, and Linnea watched my stories without sending a word. Rowan removed the footage only after Darius's attorney sent a preservation letter. The museum removed me from the Fear and Imagination launch because the board said my public judgment had become a concern. I thought the prank would prove I was the brave one. I called it helping him, then honesty, then control, because each name sounded better than what I had done. Darius had given me one private door, and I opened it for a room that wanted to laugh. The red foam nose stayed inside the evidence folder. Nobody laughed when it came out.